give out the PowerPoint as well, the slides. So if you miss anything, we'll be able to send that out as a follow-up with the recording and the PowerPoint in case you want to use in those follow-up pieces. So with that being said, I'm going to let Miss Rachel Andrews introduce herself to give you her background. Thanks, Rachel, for being here.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. All right. All right, can everybody see my screen? Awesome, very cool. So I'm Rachel Andrews. I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor, which means basically like I am a mental health therapist. I have my pupil and personnel services credential since 2007. I went to UC Santa Barbara, go Gauchos, and LMU for counseling. I've been a school counselor for 15 years. I served the Bay Area online in grades 6 through 12. And I also worked in Redondo Beach in the middle school level for 14 years. Right now, my current position is I'm the mental health and wellness counselor at Redondo Union High School, which is a new position. We have over 3,000 students. We have lots of counselors, but they're doing so many different things that they decided to really prioritize and hire just one person to really focus on the social and emotional well-being of our students. I have a 4.5-year-old boy. He's very spirited and energetic, and a 15-month-old little girl. So I'm really like finger on the pulse of what it's like to be that like working parent, working mom, working educator. And I really love anything that has to do with mental health or social emotional well-being of our children. I also have a background in criminal justice. I used to work in the federal prison system. I worked with inmates of all different backgrounds, in for all different types of offenses, from like the least to the worst that you can possibly imagine. That's actually the whole reason why I became a counselor in the first place, was to really have that emphasis on prevention. So I'm excited to present to you today about suicide prevention and how we can support our students in learning what their role is. So I'd love to hear from you in the chat box, if you can write down for me what it is that you do. I'd love to sort of see like who my audience is, so I can get a better idea of who's here and to tailor my presentation. So if you could just type in what you do, what your role is, that would help me a lot. So thanks. Okay. Go school counselors, woohoo, awesome. And this presentation will also be, since it's being recorded, it can be shared out with anybody, administrators, ASB directors, whoever. So thank you. Okay, so today we're going to go over some common statistics, things that you probably already know, but we're really going to hone in on barriers to talking about suicide. What are the typical warning signs? And then what is it, how can we empower our students in our schools to really say something or do something, do the appropriate, do the right thing to help save a friend's life? It's really tricky, really difficult for them to know what to do when they're put in that situation. The tragic trends that we have seen, obviously, like when I started as a counselor, suicide was the 3rd leading cause of death. Now it has moved up to the 2nd leading cause of death. If we take a look, every year since 2007, the number of students who have actually created a suicide plan has gone up every single year. It hasn't gone down, it hasn't stayed the same, it's literally gone up every single year. We know that our more marginalized student populations, such as our BIPOC, LGBTQIA+, low socioeconomic, those students actually are typically at even double the risk of students who aren't one of the marginalized groups. And it's, you know, it's become more, it's come to light a little bit more in the last, you know, the different injustices and everything in the last few years, which is really positive. But still we see that suicides have gone up in those groups and they're not trending downward. Every year, there are about 3,700 suicide attempts by young people in grades 9 through 12. But the good news is that 4 out of 5 of those students tell someone or show someone that they're planning on doing this. So between 50 and 75% of students actually say something. They say, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to take my life. They say that to somebody else. And so they're communicating their intentions prior to it happening. So what we know is that we have almost 3,000 young people that we can save every year if we communicate, if we get that person connected to help when they show us that they're in that kind of pain. It's amazing what we can do if we actually train our students and show our students that, hey, you know what? If somebody says something, this is what you can do. You can save someone. So what barriers do you see to talking about suicide in schools? There are a lot of barriers. When I first became a counselor, of course, I'm still on fire, right, for helping kids, but I was just like so enthusiastic coming out the gate, like, oh my gosh, let's get a suicide prevention curriculum going. Let's do this. Let's go into every classroom. Let's talk to kids about suicide. And my principal at the time pulled me in and she was like, slow your roll. No, we are not doing a suicide prevention curriculum in our middle school. These kids, they're too young. We can't talk about this. We can't do this. And so she squashed it, right? Like immediately. And I was shocked, like knowing what I know, this is a really important topic. So think of the barriers that you know of, either in your own school experience or what you've heard or what you imagine. And please write those in the chat box. I want to know from you, what is it that you are seeing that's the biggest barrier to people actually talking about suicide in schools? Oops. Okay, so hold on a second. There you are. Okay, so I'm seeing liability. That's a good one. Resources, right? Okay, that makes sense. If we start talking about it, are we going to be able to handle what we uncover? Parents' beliefs, yeah, these are good. Okay, so common things that we see is that people think that talking about suicide causes suicide. So people think that if we start talking about suicide, kids are gonna be like, oh, this is like a great idea. I should totally do it. But we know from research that that is not the case. Also parents, like somebody also already mentioned that, right? Parents in the community think it's taboo. It's too heavy for school staff to discuss. This is a family matter only. This is only something that parents should be discussing with their kids. But what we know from talking to kids is that parents aren't having these conversations with their children. Some of them are, but the majority, it doesn't even cross their mind to even really start having those kind of conversations with their child. People also tend to think it's an impulsive choice. So they think, oh, this isn't preventable. This isn't something that if we address in school that we can actually prevent or make changes. They think it's something where a student in the moment gets really upset and kills themselves. And you couldn't have prevented it no matter what you did. So a lot of people think it's sort of a futile endeavor. Also, people think like, well, is it even like, do kids even have it that bad? Like, they're getting good grades, or they have food, they have shelter, like they're fine, right? A lot of different parents that I talk to, their children are crying out for emotional support or for mental health support, for therapy, for things like that. And what happens is parents are like, but they're getting straight A's. Like, I don't understand. Like, they're not understanding that these things, while they are connected, that you can be successful in multiple areas of your life. So that kind of goes to that only those kids, like, oh, only troubled kids would harm themselves or kill themselves. But truly, it's students across the board, kids who are getting straight A's, gifted and talented students, students taking lots of AP classes, all of these kids across the board, suicide impacts all of them. So it's a myth to believe that it would just be like, you know, that emo kid over there with the dark eyeliner, right? It's really could be any kid from any group with any type of background. So because of those barriers, we're not always able to really access and have the kind of conversations that we really need to have with our students. So the conversations that we need to have with our students is all of our students, all of our parents, and all of our staff at every school should know what the warning signs of suicide are. They should all know. It should be just something that is general and just, you know, part of your training every year, part of what you review every year when you start in a school. We all know feelings of hopelessness and helplessness, insomnia, panic attacks, irritability, rage, change in behaviors. A big one that we tend to see with students is social isolation. They were hanging out with a group of friends, now they're by themselves, or now they're not talking to their friends. Maybe they're all part of like a group chat or a group DM or a Discord server, and they were all talking and now one of them's not talking. Like they've just kind of dropped off, sort of disappeared for a little while, right? That social isolation piece is really, really common one. Feelings of being a burden. I just don't want to bother my parents anymore with all of my problems. I don't want to bother my friends anymore with all of my problems. It's too much, right? Feelings of being a burden. We'll also see posting things in Discord groups like, I don't want to live anymore. What's the point of life? I can't do this. I'll never be good enough anyway. We'll see kids, a lot of students writing about their depression, their feelings, their sadness in school journals or assignments, especially in English classes. Some of the research that's come out within the last year or two actually links anxiety more so to suicide than even depression. And we have always thought depression, sadness, suicide, they're hand in hand, right? But now we're seeing that anxiety, that constant feeling of worry wears people down so much that those suicidal thoughts start to surface. Also, another thing for all of us to really be aware of is that a lot of our students really, I mean, I would say ages like grades 3rd grade and up can have this feeling of what's called like two people, like the bifurcated self. So this is the bifurcation model. And so what this is like this feeling of like, well, this is who I am. Like I should be happy. I should have friends. I should be getting really good grades. Like this is who I am. But then I'm also really sad or really mad, or I feel really lonely. I feel like an imposter. I feel like I'm with my friends in a group and I don't belong there. None of them connect with me at all. Like I'm not feeling connected. So this feeling of like having two totally different selves, one that's happy and one that looks happy and one that's sad. And it's like these two pieces of yourself are sort of warring with each other, sort of fighting with each other a little bit. And it creates this dissonance of not really knowing who you are and not accepting that you can be two things at once, that you can have both of these feelings, that you can be laughing at one moment and feel sad the next. And then the last thing here, really super important for me to communicate, is that when students and young people start to think of killing themselves, taking their own life, they pretty much never tell parents. They don't. They do not tell their parents. Their parents usually have absolutely no idea. The people who they communicate these feelings of sadness with will be acquaintances, will be friends, and will be teachers or school staff. So those are the first people who usually hear those warning signs coming out. Parents don't usually hear them, okay? And I've asked students, like, would you tell your parents? And across the board, it's like, no, I do not. Again, I do not want to be a burden to my parents. Okay, so that leads me to sort of friends as therapists, right? We have a lot of kids, a lot of students that have so much going on, right? We talk about like everything that's happened with COVID, with trauma, but then we also have just the trauma of divorce is so common. Maybe a parent or a relative who's using or abusing substances. We have all these things that are impacting our students, and they need to talk about it. And a lot of times the people who they talk about it with is their friends. And friends, of course, want to help each other, right? Because helping people feels so good. It feels so rewarding. And when your friend comes to you and says, my parents are fighting a lot, or, my dad hit my mom, or whatever it is, to be that person that they're confiding this huge thing is like, just feels amazing. And now you're this, you're this confidant, you are this super close friend. It really enhances the friendship and makes you closer than ever before, right? To have this sort of intimate, serious, deep knowledge of another person. But over time, that type of emotional labor, sort of always being there for someone almost any time of day. And we know our students are making themselves accessible, via text or whatever, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., DMs, waking up, responding to things because they want to be available, right? They are not sleeping. They are just constantly on like high alert. Like, is my friend okay? Are her parents fighting again? What is happening? And so there's this emotional labor that really, really takes a toll on the friend. They don't have boundaries. They're learning about boundaries. They're learning about safe and healthy relationships. They don't know, okay? They think that this is the way like friendships are supposed to be. You're supposed to be there for each other. But it gets into this sort of imbalance that can lead to the friendship completely collapsing. And then the child that needs the support, the student that needs the support, not really having that connection with anyone or anybody that they feel like they can talk to. If you have students that have a really strong sense of purpose and a strong sense of self-worth, then they are the type of student who can really kind of keep that balance and say, hey, you know what, this is so serious, like maybe we should talk to somebody else about it, right? If they have that confidence. But if they don't have that confidence, then they are getting sort of emotionally fed and feeling good about their friendship, and that's leading to the confidence, and they don't want to compromise that. So that means that when someone comes to them and says, I want to kill myself, they don't feel confident enough to say something to somebody else that can actually help that student. So what do we want to teach our students? We want to teach them that if somebody comes to you and they're sharing these very serious things with you, like feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, sadness, any of those warning signs that we saw on that list, that you should be showing them just unconditional positive regard, empathy, and compassion, and I am sorry, and I'm here for you. But drawing the line at offering advice or offering solutions. And a lot of times, kids, they want to fix things for each other. They want to make those things better. They want to be that person, that friend that like fix things. And they love that people are asking them for their advice. It makes them feel so important. And so, just like, look at me, I'm a great friend, But what we want to do is we want to tell them, like, draw the line at that. Okay, when it comes to like finding advice, finding solutions, this is something you have to go to school for years to sort of learn these things. This is where it's gonna get murky, and it's gonna start to cause that imbalance of power in the relationship. So they should put it back on the friend. What do you think you can do? What do you think you should do? What do you want to do? Let's engage in some healthy coping skills together. Of course, they're not going to say that. They might say, let's go for a walk. Like, let's go down to the pier. Let's eat some ice cream together. Let's watch a movie. Let's color. Let's, I don't know, watch anime together. So whatever it is that makes that friendship fun, they should do together. That's what will help that student more than anything else, is having that friend that's, instead of offering advice and trying to fix them, that friend that is like, let's cope, like, let's deal with this somehow. Let's go shopping, like, let's do whatever it is that kind of makes our friendship special. So really emphasizing that that's a really key piece of helping their friend, is really going out and doing some of these things. Also sharing resources, right? Saying like, well, have you ever like texted the crisis support line? They're actually really cool. They're like really helpful. They'll answer any time of night. Or saying like, hey, have you ever talked to the counselor? Like, she's actually really nice if you wanted to go talk to her. Or, hey, like Mr. Smith, a science teacher, he's really understanding. I bet he would have some good ideas. So sort of like making that transition off of them and onto someone else, a trusted adult or a resource that could be helpful. And so when that friend sort of like mentions it in a non-threatening way, not as advice or a solution, but just as like, oh, why don't we try this? I've done it and it was pretty cool. It really sort of demystifies the process for them, and be like, why don't we text together and like see what happens? Or why don't we call the suicide hotline and just like see who answers, like if anyone answers or whatever. And as we know, like people always will. So I think having kids know that they can sort of demystify that, and that they can help their friend, access these resources and services, is a really good thing for them to do. So when a friend is suicidal, what we have to teach our students is that if anyone ever mentions suicide or taking their life, or they have a really concerning or different, like, change in behavior, that they have to talk to an adult. They just have to say to anyone, any adult at all, their coach, their parent, their sensei, their teacher, their counselor, their therapist, anybody, like, hey, I'm worried about my friend and this is why. Okay, put it into somebody else's hands. The thing is that our students are so afraid of violating their trust or their relationship with their friend, right? And so we say to them, like, well, it will save their life, right? But when I talk to them about it, there's just this sense of, like, I didn't think it was that serious. Like, they said, oh, I'm going to kill myself. And at the time, it was just so much information. It was sort of overloading me to where I just sort of minimized it. And I just kind of moved right on, like, oh, they're not going to kill themselves. And then sort of forgot about it, right? So we need to train our students to know that what you say and when you talk about taking your life, that is very serious, and that everyone will take it seriously. And we know that in recent years, right, over the last like 5 to 10 years, it's just been this thing where people were like, oh, KYS, or like, go kill yourself, right? It's just this sort of like cultural thing where people are like, oh, well, I guess I'll go kill myself, right? And it's like becoming a joke or like a common insult that people don't even bat an eyelash at anymore, right? However, if we train our students to know that, like, anytime your friends talk about suicide, like, you have to take it seriously, and you have to say, like, hey, I'm going to get you help, or I'm going to talk to somebody about this because this is really serious and I'm worried about you. And that it's okay for that person to be mad at you for a little bit, because later on, when they do get the help they need, down the road, they will be grateful and they will feel like, okay, you did do the right thing. But in the moment, they're not going to. So another piece of this too is that teachers and staff, and really any adult on any school campus, they're not always going to be comfortable talking about suicide. It's such like it's still a taboo topic to talk about. But really, the beginning of the year, it's so critical for every single staff member to set the tone and to say, like, hey, you know what? I care about you. I'm concerned about you. I am an adult that you can trust. And if you think that you want to take your own life and kill yourself, or you know someone who does, or you're worried about them, you can come to me and I will welcome that conversation. Okay, so it takes 1 minute or less to tell your students in each class as a teacher, hey, I can be that person for you. Okay, and the kids that need that person, they're remembering that. They're filing it away. And maybe 6 months down the road, they're coming to you and they're like, I'm worried about my friend. Okay, that's what needs to start happening. Okay, every adult needs to say, I am welcoming this, and I am here, and you can come and talk to me. Now, safety planning. Safety planning is something that we do when we have someone who is actively suicidal or who has been suicidal. As a therapist or a school counselor, we sit down and we say, how can we keep you safe? What can you do? What can we do? We go through the whole process of safety planning. It's really important as schools that we teach our students how to safety plan, and every single student in school should have a safety plan. So as part of a school counseling program, as part of any of the lessons that we're giving, we're going into classrooms and we're delivering social emotional lessons on like stress management and all these different topics. But something that is so critical to do in every single school is to safety plan. So to create with students, identifying, okay, what are the warning signs? Normalizing that we all know what the warning signs of suicide are, and how can I identify that in my peers and my friends and myself? How do we see someone? How do we talk to somebody if we need to? Like, how can I see the counselor? Or how can I put in, like anonymously, even like on Sprigeo or anonymous reporting, how can I let an adult know anonymously that I'm worried about another kid? Is there a process? Is there a protocol, right? What is that protocol? Identifying that in safety planning. Ensuring that all students on campus feel connected, like they have a trusted adult on campus that they can go to, that they can talk to. And that they also have friends on campus, at least one friend that they feel like, hey, I can talk to this person about my emotions and they're not gonna like make fun of me, they're gonna support me, right? So listing it out, right? Listing it all out. Like, these are my people, like actually writing it down or typing it out. These are my adults on campus. These are my go-to students on campus. And then also in my family and my home and my community, these are people that I can talk to. And really thinking about it, like, if I was suicidal, who would I talk to? Because if you're in your, rational mind, you're going to be able to identify those things. But if you're truly hopeless and helpless and suicidal, you might not really be able to kind of differentiate and figure out who can you talk to. You might feel like it's no one. So if you already have your safety plan, you can go back and you can reference that, and you can say, oh yeah, you know what, I was going to talk to my pastor, or I was going to talk to my dad, or whoever it was, right? And you can go back and reference that and go, okay, I identified this person as a safe person to talk to. All students should have access to resources, crisis text line, suicide prevention lifeline. In most states now, it's posted on the back of their ID cards. It's printed on the back of every student's ID cards. They have it. It's listed in their agenda books. It's all over the place. And because it should be, right? It should be all over the place. But no matter where you are, if it's not posted or in like really accessible place and space for students regularly, then it needs to be. So that's another part of sort of normalizing it. Like, hey, this is so normal that we have it posted up like next to our bell schedule. Like, this is like, if you need it, here it is for you. And we know in about, I think 2 years, we're going to be getting like the 911 for mental health, which is going to be super amazing once that goes live. And that will also really help to sort of normalize these things. Also demystify the process, right? If you really are a passionate teacher or counselor or something, go into a classroom and actually like show them how it works. Text the crisis line and say, hey, I'm here. I'm a school counselor, or I'm a teacher or administrator. I'm here, with a group of students, and we just wanted to like text you and like see how this works. Like, how quickly did you respond? Do you seem nice? Do you seem supportive? Like, what, and or even calling that number, right, to kind of show them like this is how it works. And so you've demystified that process, and now that barrier is gone. And when a student is suicidal, when somebody is suicidal, they need every single barrier possible removed to them getting help, right? Because every barrier to them is so huge and almost insurmountable. Dialing a number seems difficult, but if they know already, like they can predict or even like kind of, oh yeah, I remember that girl answered, she seemed really nice. They can kind of walk it through in their mind. It seems possible for them, right? So creating a system. This is so important. So many schools have systems for so many things, right? Like, we've got systems for state testing, like really good systems, like perfect systems, right? Like, everybody has a good system for that. They know exactly when everything's coming, when it's going to happen. Like, there's technology, all the students know what to do. There's like multiple reviews and lessons on it. If things are important to us, right, as educators, then we will create a system for it. And so there should be a system for suicide prevention at every single school site. Not just like a district plan of like, what is the paperwork that you fill out when you're doing a risk assessment. I'm talking about a system that everybody's a part of, every single teacher, every single student. And it doesn't have to be this huge, labor-intensive, difficult thing, right? It just needs to be a suicide prevention protocol that students are aware of, right? So it could really just be something as simple as text Sprigio, right? It could just be like, here, we've got an anonymous reporting system. We've got a Google form. If you're worried about a friend.
I'm on a webinar about suicide. I may have just had a heart attack and died accidentally.
Okay. So suicide protocol is so important because if students know what to do and it's a normalized part of the school system, then they know that it's okay to do it and that other students are doing it. So it's not weird or odd for them to do it, right? So it should be something that's advertised, something like Sprigio or anonymous reporting, like a Google form that just is posted everywhere. It's on the school website, it's in the Schoology or Google Classrooms. It's something that is just pushed out to students regularly to their emails or shared with them. And staff should have a regular training every single year. It doesn't have to be long. It can literally be 10 minutes. It can be 10 minutes. And all you need to cover is like, here's the warning signs. Here's how you can talk about it with your students to be that trusted adult. And then here's what you do if a student comes to you and says, I'm worried about a friend, or I'm thinking of taking my own life, or I'm feeling really sad. These are things that you can do, okay? So really quick stuff, only need 10 minutes. And you can go over these things with them, and then they can implement them in their class. And it doesn't take a lot of time. It doesn't take a lot of resources. But after they get that training and that information, they know what to do. They know who to call. They know how to help that student, how to connect them to the resources that they need. So digital wellness, as you know, is a big piece of all of this, right? Our students spend so much of their time online. When I walk around my high school at lunchtime, what I see is about 60% of students are doing like the same old thing that they did when I was in high school, kind of like eating and like messing with each other and talking and chatting. Like the other 40% are all just kind of like on their phones, right? Like watching something or messaging a friend at a different school, or whatever it is that they're doing. And that's fine, right? That can be like a coping skill or strategy that they use, but we need to make sure that they are staying healthy, right? And that's not becoming something that's all consuming or impacting their mental health or well-being. So there is a free sample here of the Digital Wellness Week workbook where you can see different like tips and lessons and things that can support. And here are some references on just different things that I referenced within my presentation. And thank you all so much for coming. I really, really, really appreciated having you here. And now I will open the floor for questions. And please feel free to put them in the chat box if you want.
And what you'll do, Rachel, if you want to go ahead and stop screen sharing, I actually can show them while if they're thinking of their questions. Let me just screen share. So I'll actually show you guys what is in, it's what we're giving away for free right now because it is Suicide Prevention Month, and our expertise at ICANHELP is the digital wellness part. So if you go to our website, that's where it's at, but we'll send you the link. But what it's giving you is this is what the workbook looks like. It's something that our team made. It just gives you like a wellness week. So making sure you are kind of having those different pieces. So every day with our Work to Be Well lessons that we have, the free lessons, we give you a suggestion of which one you should do. And then, and those are all free that we made with Work to Be Well. And then if you go to Monday, we give you Monday's lesson. So it has activities, so the emotional first aid kit photo challenge, along with Spirit Day suggestions, so do workout clothes. And then we give you Instagram questions that you can put up on your Instagram to make that interactive as well with the students, which that's what they like. And it helps with that piece. So each day, and then you can see here's the emotional first aid kit photo challenge. You can do this as a QR code. You can have it printed out. A lot of schools have been doing like airdropping it, or they just put it up one picture and they put it on a table and they can just take a picture of it. So different cute things. And then Tuesday, so you can kind of see what this looks like. It just each day we break it down for them. So then that's what you get in this piece. So Monday is free, and then everything else, it's $19 for every day. And then additional bonus part, this is something else that one of our graphic design students decided to make, was this will be another additional piece where they can do their math on figuring out how much time they spend on their apps. So then you're bringing in math, and they can kind of figure out their percentage, right? So they can figure out a goal. What would they like? What is your percentage? And then what would you like to have your goal to be? And how can you get that down? And then it goes, let me go down here. And then they have things that you can do. I'm going to go down to Instagram. But this is all the things that they can do. You can delete comments made on your post, and here's how. You can pause all your notification, and here's how. You can actually now on Instagram, you can actually stop seeing how many likes you have, and here's how. So they're showing you all the things they can do for their digital wellness. So that goes along with the $19 in that package. So that's what we have in there. And I do see one thing in the chat.
Yeah, I noticed that Easton was saying having materials available for students in high school, if a student was to take something from somewhere that other people might be like, hey, like, why are you taking that? Like, what's wrong with you or whatever. So yeah, there are definitely anonymous ways of giving things out. My suggestion would be, Easton, I don't know if you have like a school counseling Instagram page, or if you like have an Instagram or anything, but you could do like link in bio, right? You could say like, hey, like there's these cool materials, link in bio, or just linking to things within. Like, so for example, on your school website, under like the counseling section, you could have a link to the materials, and anybody who wants them can click on them. So that way they're not like actually taking physical things and other people are watching them. Is that sort of what you were asking about, Easton? Yeah, you're welcome.
Love it.
All
Any
right.
final questions, or else we're going to wrap it up? Super informative, Allison. Rachel, I'm sorry, Rachel, you were hitting on the things that I hear constantly students talk about. So you were dead on, and amazing content. I was taking all kinds of notes during that. So hope everybody got what they got out of it. Please, we will follow up with the slides and the recording. Please share it out to who you guys need to on your end to kind of keep getting this information out there, because it is needed. So if we can give Rachel an amazing round of applause, everybody, put it in the chat. Give her, and here's the best thing that helps them is put one thing you got out of it before you leave. If you can put one thing in the chat, that just helps Rachel kind of evaluate what you got out of it. So if you can, just put one thing.
Thank you.
In the chat. Or you can unmute yourself and you can tell her yourself. Yeah, good job. Way to be good educators. Following directions. Put your one takeaway. Yep. Talking about suicide doesn't encourage it. You're right. Good job. Training only has to be 10 minutes to make a difference. Yep, exactly. Everyone thinks training is like the super long process. It definitely isn't. So awesome. There you go, Rachel. You had good people listening. You had good students today.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining.